I never thought my own sister would sabotage the most important celebration of my life. But when the venue owner pulled me aside with security footage from that Tuesday afternoon, everything became crystal clear. What I saw on that screen changed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and after years of fertility struggles, I was finally 7 months pregnant with my first child. The baby shower my sister volunteered to plan was supposed to be a celebration of this miracle. Instead, it became the day I learned who my sister really was. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in South Philadelphia, my sister Carmen and I were inseparable despite our 3-year age gap. Our parents, Maria and Diego Martinez, worked multiple jobs to keep food on the table. Mom cleaned office buildings at night while Dad drove a delivery truck during the day. Money was always tight, but our home was filled with love, laughter, and the smell of Mom's homemade empanadas every Sunday. Carmen was the outgoing one, effortlessly popular in school with her infectious laugh and natural charisma. She could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. I was quieter, more studious, always with my nose in a book or helping Mom in the kitchen. While Carmen dated the star athletes and got invited to every party, I spent my weekends volunteering at the local animal shelter and maintaining my honor roll status. Despite our different personalities, we were each other's closest confidants. Carmen would sneak into my room after her dates to tell me everything that happened, and I would help her with her homework when she struggled in math. When kids at school made fun of my thick glasses or secondhand clothes, Carmen would fiercely defend me. When Carmen got her heart broken by her first serious boyfriend, I held her while she cried for hours. Our parents' divorce when I was 15 and Carmen was 18 created a seismic shift in our family dynamic. The split wasn't acrimonious, but it was practical and somewhat cold. Dad had met someone else, a younger woman named Patricia, who worked at his delivery company. Mom discovered the affair through overheard phone conversations and late-night meetings that Dad claimed were work-related. The divorce proceedings revealed the harsh reality of our family's financial situation. There wasn't much to divide beyond debt and a modest 2-bedroom house that needed significant repairs. Dad moved in with Patricia, who lived in a nicer neighborhood across town. Mom kept the house, but struggled to make mortgage payments on her cleaning salary alone. Carmen and I watched our parents' 20-year marriage dissolve with a mixture of sadness and resignation. Neither of them seemed particularly surprised by the outcome, which somehow made it worse. They had grown apart slowly, quietly, until they were essentially strangers sharing the same address. After the divorce, Carmen threw herself into college life at Temple University, majoring in communications with dreams of working in television or public relations. She joined a sorority, dated frequently, and seemed determined to reinvent herself as someone more sophisticated than her South Philly roots suggested. Meanwhile, I focused on my studies, working part-time at a local pharmacy to help Mom with bills while maintaining my grades for nursing school applications. The distance between Carmen and I began during her sophomore year of college. She started bringing home friends from school who spoke differently, dressed differently, and seemed to look down on our neighborhood. I noticed how Carmen would change her accent slightly when talking to them, dropping the South Philly inflections that had always been natural to her speech. During family dinners, Carmen would make subtle comments about wanting more from life, about not settling for the limitations our parents had accepted. While I understood her ambition, her words often felt like implied criticism of Mom's choices and our humble background. After graduating from nursing school, I was hired at Children's Hospital, fulfilling a dream I'd held since volunteering at the pediatric wing during high school. The work was demanding, but incredibly rewarding. I specialized in oncology, helping young cancer patients and their families navigate some of the most difficult moments of their lives. Carmen, meanwhile, struggled to find her footing after college.
The television industry proved more competitive than she anticipated, and her entry-level position at a local cable company was far from the glamorous career she had envisioned. She moved back home with Mom temporarily, which created tension as she adjusted to the reality that her college dreams might take longer to materialize than she had expected. During this period, I met David Chen, a resident physician at the hospital. David was kind, intelligent, and shared my passion for helping children. He came from a family of doctors and had grown up in the suburbs, but he never made me feel self-conscious about our different backgrounds. We bonded over late-night conversations during hospital breaks and shared experiences of wanting to make a meaningful difference in young people's lives. Carmen seemed initially happy about my relationship with David, but I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior when he was around. She would dominate conversations, telling elaborate stories about her college experiences or her aspirations in media. She would dress more carefully when she knew David was coming over, and would find reasons to insert herself into our dates or quiet moments together.
When David proposed after 2 years of dating, Carmen was the first person I called. Her initial reaction was enthusiastic, but I detected something forced in her excitement. During the engagement period, she made several comments about how lucky I was to find someone so successful and how important it was to marry well in today's economy. David and I had a small, intimate wedding at a local church with a reception at a community center. Carmen was my maid of honor and gave a beautiful speech about sisterly love and new beginnings. However, I noticed she seemed distracted during the ceremony and spent much of the reception networking with David's medical colleagues rather than celebrating with our family. After our wedding, David and I moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital. We talked about starting a family, but decided to wait until David finished his residency and we had more financial stability. Carmen, meanwhile, had landed a better position at a marketing firm and moved into her own apartment in Center City, finally achieving some of the independence and sophistication she had craved. For the next 3 years, our relationship found a new equilibrium. We would meet for dinner once a month, text regularly, and include each other in major life decisions. Carmen seemed to be thriving professionally, working her way up at the marketing firm and developing a social circle of ambitious young professionals. I was finding deep satisfaction in my nursing career and building a strong marriage with David. The fertility struggles began during our 3rd year of marriage. What we initially assumed would happen naturally required medical intervention, multiple procedures, and emotional roller coasters of hope and disappointment. Carmen was supportive during this difficult period, accompanying me to some appointments and offering encouragement when treatments failed. When I finally became pregnant at age 30, after 2 years of fertility treatments, the joy was overwhelming. David and I had almost given up hope, and this pregnancy felt like a genuine miracle. Carmen's reaction was enthusiastic, immediately volunteering to help plan a baby shower and offering to coordinate with my friends and David's family. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and by the 7th month, I was glowing with happiness and anticipation. David's residency was nearly complete, and we had saved enough money to move into a larger apartment with a proper nursery. Everything seemed to be falling into place for our growing family. Carmen took charge of the baby shower planning with characteristic enthusiasm, insisting that I focus on staying healthy and let her handle all the details. She researched venues, coordinated with guests, and assured me that everything would be perfect for the celebration we had waited so long to have. Looking back now, I realize there were signs that something wasn't right with Carmen's behavior during the planning process, but I was so focused on my pregnancy and so grateful for her help that I missed the warning signals entirely. The sister I thought I knew was about to reveal a side of herself that would shatter everything I believed about family loyalty and love. Carmen's enthusiasm for planning my baby shower initially felt like a return to the sisterly closeness we had shared in childhood. She called me almost daily with updates, sent Pinterest boards filled with decorative ideas, and seemed genuinely excited about celebrating my pregnancy. However, as the weeks progressed, I began to notice subtle changes in her approach that left me feeling increasingly uncomfortable. The first red flag appeared when Carmen announced she had chosen the venue without consulting me. During one of our weekly dinners at a trendy restaurant in Center City, she pulled out her phone with barely contained excitement. "I found the perfect place for your shower," she said, scrolling through photos. "The Meridian Event Center downtown. It's where all the society ladies hold their fundraisers. The photographer who covers Philadelphia Magazine events told me it's impossible to book, but I managed to secure a Saturday afternoon slot." I stared at the images on her phone, showing an opulent ballroom with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The space was undeniably beautiful, but it seemed completely out of proportion for the intimate gathering I had envisioned. "Carmen, it's gorgeous, but isn't it a bit much for a baby shower? I was thinking of something smaller, maybe Mom's backyard or that cute tea room near the hospital." Her expression shifted almost imperceptibly, a flash of irritation crossing her features before she smiled again. "Rebecca, this is your first baby after everything you've been through. Don't you think you deserve something special? Besides, David's colleagues will be impressed, and that's important for his career." The comment about David's career struck me as odd. While I wanted our friends to enjoy themselves, I had never considered my baby shower as a networking opportunity. The guest list I had compiled included close friends from the hospital, a few neighbors, Mom and David's sister who was flying in from Seattle. "Who exactly are you planning to invite?" I asked, taking a sip of my water. Carmen's eyes lit up with an energy that seemed disproportionate to the question. "Oh, I've been expanding the list. Your original 30 people seemed too small for the venue, so I've added some of my contacts from work, a few women from my yoga studio who would love to meet you, and some of David's medical school friends' wives. We're looking at around 75 guests now." My heart sank. The intimate celebration I had imagined was transforming into something completely different. "Carmen, I don't know most of these people. A baby shower is supposed to be about close relationships, not networking." "Trust me, Rebecca, I know what I'm doing. These connections could be valuable for your family's future. You're thinking too small."
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now back to where we left off. That phrase, "thinking too small," echoed comments Carmen had made throughout our adult years whenever I expressed contentment with my life choices. It carried an implicit criticism that my values were somehow limited or naive. Over the following weeks, Carmen's planning became increasingly elaborate and impersonal. She hired a professional event coordinator without discussing the expense, ordered custom invitations that cost more than I typically spent on groceries in a month, and arranged for a 5-course catered lunch that seemed more appropriate for a wedding than a baby shower. When I gently suggested that the costs were becoming excessive, Carmen waved away my concerns. "Don't worry about the money. I've got connections with vendors who owe me favors from work events. Besides, this is an investment in your social standing." The concept of social standing was foreign to my worldview. As a pediatric nurse, my sense of worth came from helping sick children and their families, not from impressing acquaintances at fancy events. Carmen's focus on appearances and connections felt like a departure from the values we had shared growing up. The guest list continued to expand beyond my comfort zone. Carmen added women I had never met, including wives of pharmaceutical executives who did business with David's hospital, and several social media influencers from her professional network. When I received the printed invitations in the mail, I was shocked to see names I didn't recognize outnumbering my actual friends and family. "Carmen, who is Victoria Pemberton?" I asked during one of our planning meetings at her apartment. "Oh, she's the wife of that orthopedic surgeon who just joined David's hospital. Beautiful woman, very well connected. Her husband could be helpful for David's career advancement." "But I've never met her. This feels like you're using my baby shower to host your own networking event." Carmen's laugh was a bit too sharp.
Rebecca, you're being paranoid. I'm just trying to introduce you to people who could become valuable friends. You spend too much time at the hospital and not enough time building relationships that could benefit your family. The implication that my friendships with fellow nurses and patients' families were somehow insufficient stung. These relationships had sustained me through difficult times and brought deep meaning to my life. Carmen's dismissal of their value revealed a growing disconnect between our perspectives. Another concerning development was Carmen's insistence on controlling every aspect of the event planning without including me in decisions. When I asked to review the menu, she told me it was a surprise. When I wanted to see the decoration plans, she said she preferred to maintain the element of surprise. When I requested a list of confirmed guests so I could personally thank them, she claimed the responses were still coming in. This exclusion from my own celebration felt increasingly wrong, but I struggled to articulate my concerns without seeming ungrateful. Carmen was investing significant time and energy into the event, and her stated intentions were loving. Yet something fundamental felt off about the entire process. The situation became more troubling when Carmen began making comments about my pregnancy and motherhood that revealed underlying tensions I hadn't recognized. During a shopping trip for maternity clothes, she made a remark that stopped me cold. "You know, Rebecca, pregnancy really suits you. You finally have an excuse to gain weight and not worry about your appearance." I had never been particularly concerned about my weight, maintaining a healthy lifestyle without obsessing over physical perfection. Carmen's comment suggested she viewed my approach to self-terror as lacking, and pregnancy as permission to abandon standards I had never felt constrained by. Later that same afternoon, while we were looking at baby clothes, Carmen made another observation that felt cutting despite its superficially supportive tone. "It's wonderful that you're finally getting the family you always wanted. Some people are just naturally maternal, even if they're not naturally glamorous. You'll be such a devoted mother." The distinction between maternal and glamorous, as if these qualities were mutually exclusive, implied that I fell into the former category by default rather than choice. Carmen seemed to be categorizing me as someone whose value lay in nurturing rather than attracting, as if these were competing rather than complementary aspects of womanhood. David began to notice changes in Carmen's behavior during this period as well. She would visit our apartment more frequently, often bringing takeout dinner and staying to discuss shower plans. During these visits, she would dominate conversations, steering topics toward her work achievements or social connections, rather than focusing on my pregnancy and our growing excitement about becoming parents. Is it just me, or has Carmen become kind of intense about this party? David asked one evening after Carmen had spent 3 hours at our apartment discussing centerpiece options. "I think she's just excited," I replied, though I shared his observation. "She's putting a lot of effort into making it special."
It feels like she's more excited about it than you are, David noted. And some of the people she's inviting seem like strangers to us. David's perspective confirmed my growing unease. The baby shower was supposed to celebrate our journey to parenthood and the community of people who had supported us through fertility struggles and pregnancy challenges. Instead, it was becoming a showcase for Carmen's event planning skills and professional networking abilities. When I tried to express these concerns to Mom during one of our weekly phone calls, she encouraged me to appreciate Carmen's efforts while gently acknowledging my feelings. "Mija, your sister loves you and wants to give you something beautiful. Maybe her way of showing love is different from what you expected, but her heart is in the right place." Mom's wisdom usually guided me well, but this situation felt more complex than a simple difference in love languages. Carmen's planning seemed driven by motivations that had little to do with celebrating my pregnancy and everything to do with advancing her own social agenda. The final straw came when Carmen announced she had hired a professional photographer to document the event, explaining that the photos would be featured in a local lifestyle magazine as part of an article about elevated entertaining for modern mothers. The idea of my intimate family celebration being used as content for a magazine article felt like a violation of privacy and purpose. When I objected, Carmen seemed genuinely surprised by my resistance. This is an amazing opportunity for exposure, Rebecca. Think about how this could benefit David's reputation in the medical community. Her inability to understand why I would prefer privacy over publicity crystallized my growing realization that Carmen and I had developed fundamentally different values about what mattered in life, and my baby shower had become the battleground where these differences would play out. The weeks leading up to my baby shower became a series of increasingly uncomfortable revelations about Carmen's true motivations and methods. What had initially seemed like sisterly enthusiasm transformed into something that felt manipulative and self-serving, leaving me questioning not only the event, but the very foundation of our relationship. The first major incident occurred when I discovered Carmen had been making decisions using my name without my knowledge or consent. I learned this through a chance encounter with Dr. Patricia Hoffman, one of David's attending physicians, during my routine prenatal appointment. "Rebecca, I'm so excited about your shower next week," Dr. Hoffman said as I was leaving the clinic. "Carmen called my office personally to invite me. She mentioned that you specifically requested I attend because you valued my mentorship of David." I smiled politely while internally panicking. I had never asked Carmen to invite Dr. Hoffman, and while I respect her professionally, we barely knew each other outside of brief hallway conversations. The idea that Carmen had claimed I specifically requested her attendance felt like a lie designed to flatter Dr. Hoffman into accepting. She also mentioned that you're hoping to transition into pediatric surgery nursing and thought I might have insights to share. I'm looking forward to discussing your career goals. This was completely fabricated. I loved my current position in pediatric oncology and had never expressed interest in surgical nursing. Carmen had apparently created an entire fictional narrative about my professional aspirations to make the invitation seem more substantial and purposeful. When I confronted Carmen about this later that evening, her response was dismissive and manipulative. "I was trying to give you conversation starters with important people. You're always so tongue-tied around David's colleagues. I thought if Dr. Hoffman believed you had specific career questions, it would make the interaction easier for you." The condescension in her tone was unmistakable. Carmen was positioning herself as my social consultant, helping me navigate relationships she assumed I was too awkward to manage independently. The fact that she had lied to accomplish this goal seemed irrelevant to her. "Carmen, I'm not tongue-tied around anyone, and I don't need you to invent career aspirations for me to have conversations with people." "Fine," she snapped, her composed facade cracking slightly. "Next time I won't try to help you make connections that could actually advance your life." This pattern of Carmen making unauthorized decisions while claiming to act in my best interest became increasingly frequent. I discovered she had contacted my close friend Monica from nursing school, telling her that I preferred guests to coordinate their outfits with a specific color scheme. Monica called me confused and slightly hurt, thinking I had become pretentious about my baby shower. "Since when do you care about coordinated outfits? And why didn't you tell me directly?" Monica asked. I had never mentioned any color scheme preference to Carmen, nor would I have imposed such requirements on my friends. When I explained that Carmen had made this request without my knowledge, Monica's response was telling. "Rebecca, that's weird. Why is she speaking for you about your own party?"
The question haunted me because I didn't have a good answer. Somewhere along the way, Carmen had assumed authority over my celebration and was making decisions that reflected her vision rather than my preferences or personality. The financial aspects of the shower also became increasingly problematic. Despite Carmen's assurances that vendor connections would minimize costs, I began receiving bills and payment requests that suggested the event was far more expensive than initially discussed. When I asked Carmen for a comprehensive budget breakdown, she became evasive. "Don't worry about the details," she insisted. "Focus on staying healthy and relaxed. I've got everything under control." But I was worrying, especially when a florist called our apartment asking about payment for an elaborate arrangement order that Carmen had apparently placed in my name. The quoted amount was more than David and I typically spent on groceries in 2 months. "I never ordered flowers from Elegance Botanicals," I told the confused florist. "There must be some mistake." When I mentioned this call to Carmen, she seemed annoyed rather than apologetic. "I put your name on the order because I was planning to surprise you with upgraded arrangements.
The florist must have called the wrong number for payment confirmation. Her explanation felt hollow, particularly since she had previously told me the flowers were handled through her vendor connections. The incident left me wondering how many other expenses were being incurred in my name without my knowledge. David's growing frustration with Carmen's behavior became more apparent during this period. She had developed a habit of calling our apartment at increasingly inconvenient times, often during dinner or right before bed, with urgent questions about shower details that seemed to require immediate answers. "Carmen, it's 9:30 on a Tuesday night," David said during one such call that I answered on speakerphone. "Can't the decision about napkin colors wait until tomorrow?" "This is important," Carmen replied sharply. "The vendor needs confirmation by morning, and Rebecca's opinion matters for her own event." "Her opinion has mattered for the past 6 months of planning. One more day won't make a difference." After I hung up, David expressed his concerns more directly than he had previously. "Rebecca, I'm starting to think Carmen is enjoying the planning process more than she's considering your actual preferences. Every conversation about this shower seems to stress you out rather than excite you." David's observation was accurate. What should have been joyful anticipation had become anxiety about what Carmen might decide or announce next. I found myself dreading her updates rather than looking forward to them. The social dynamics surrounding the shower became increasingly uncomfortable as well. Carmen had created a group text with several of the women she had invited, positioning herself as the primary point of contact for all shower-related questions. I wasn't included in this group initially, and only learned about it when one of David's colleagues' wives mentioned it during a chance encounter at the hospital cafeteria. "Your sister is so organized. That group text with all the coordination details has been super helpful." I smiled and nodded while internally reeling. Carmen was managing communications about my baby shower without including me in the conversations? When I asked her about the group text later, she seemed surprised by my concern. "I was trying to handle all the logistics so you wouldn't be bothered with constant questions about shower planning. I thought you'd appreciate not having your phone buzzing all day with shower planning stuff." "But it's my shower," I pointed out. "Shouldn't I be part of the conversations about it?" Carmen's pause before responding was telling. "Of course, I'll add you to the group." When she added me to the text chain the next day, I discovered that Carmen had been presenting herself as the primary host rather than the organizer. Her messages referred to my vision for Rebecca's special day and the experience I want to create for our guests. The language suggested ownership that felt inappropriate for someone who was supposed to be helping me celebrate. The guest list continued to evolve in ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. Carmen added women I had never met without asking my permission, while simultaneously suggesting that some of my actual friends might not fit the atmosphere she was trying to create. "Are you sure you want to invite Lisa from the hospital?" she asked about one of my closest colleagues. "She's lovely, but she might feel out of place with some of the other guests." Lisa was a brilliant nurse practitioner who had been my mentor and friend for 5 years. The suggestion that she might be somehow inappropriate for my baby shower was insulting and revealed Carmen's increasingly elitist attitude toward my professional relationships.
"What do you mean she might feel out of place?" I asked. "Well, some of the other women are more polished. I just want everyone to feel comfortable." The implication that Lisa lacked polish compared to Carmen's networking contacts was deeply offensive. Lisa had supported me through my fertility struggles, covered my shifts when I was too sick to work during early pregnancy, and genuinely cared about my well-being. Carmen's dismissal of her value as a guest reflected a shallow understanding of meaningful relationships. The breaking point in my patience came when Carmen announced she had arranged for a surprise element that she refused to discuss in detail. Her secrecy about this addition to the program made me nervous, especially given her track record of making decisions that served her interests more than mine. "What kind of surprise?" I pressed. "You'll love it," she insisted. "Trust me, it's something that will make your shower memorable and special." Her refusal to provide details felt like another example of Carmen prioritizing her vision over my comfort. The entire event was supposed to celebrate my pregnancy and growing family, but I felt increasingly like a passenger in someone else's production with little control over the script or outcome. When I tried to discuss my concerns with Mom, she listened sympathetically but encouraged me to focus on Carmen's good intentions rather than her execution. Maybe she's trying too hard because she wants everything to be perfect for you. You know how much she loves you. But I was beginning to question whether Carmen's actions reflected love for me or love for the attention and recognition that came with hosting an elaborate event. The distinction mattered because it affected whether I could trust her motivations and decisions going forward. As the shower date approached, my excitement about celebrating my pregnancy was overshadowed by anxiety about what Carmen had planned and worry about how the event would unfold. Instead of feeling pampered and celebrated, I felt like I was preparing for a performance in someone else's production with little control over the script or outcome. The devastating phone call came on a Thursday morning, exactly 3 days before my baby shower was scheduled to take place. I was in the middle of organizing thank you cards and gift bags when my phone rang, displaying a number I didn't recognize. The professional voice on the other end delivered news that would shatter my understanding of everything Carmen had been doing behind my scenes. Mrs. Chen, this is Margaret Sullivan from the Meridian Event Center. I'm calling regarding the baby shower scheduled for this Saturday, and I'm afraid we have a very serious problem. My heart immediately began racing. At 34 weeks pregnant, any unexpected stress felt magnified, and the formal tone in Margaret's voice suggested this wasn't a simple scheduling issue. "What kind of problem?" I asked, setting down the cards and giving the call my full attention. "We received a cancellation request yesterday afternoon from someone claiming to represent your family. However, the circumstances surrounding this cancellation are highly irregular, and after reviewing our security protocols, I believe you need to be made aware of what transpired." The word cancellation hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry, what cancellation? No one from my family would cancel my baby shower without speaking to me first." Margaret's pause suggested she was choosing her words carefully. "Mrs. Chen, I think it would be best if you could come to our facility this afternoon. There are some things I need to show you that would be better discussed in person." The cryptic nature of her request filled me with dread, but I agreed to meet her at 2 o'clock. I immediately tried calling Carmen, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking her to call me urgently about the shower, then spent the next 4 hours in a state of increasing panic. David was in surgery and couldn't be reached, so I drove to the Meridian Event Center alone, my mind racing through possibilities. Perhaps there had been a miscommunication, a vendor issue, or some kind of administrative error that could be quickly resolved. Margaret Sullivan met me in the lobby of the elegant venue, her expression grave but kind. She was a woman in her 50s with the composed demeanor of someone accustomed to managing high-stress events, but I could see genuine concern in her eyes. "Mrs. Chen, thank you for coming so quickly. I've been managing events here for 15 years, and I've never encountered a situation quite like this one." She led me to her office where she gestured for me to sit in a comfortable chair across from her desk. "Before I explain what happened, I want you to know that we've dealt with family disputes and wedding drama before, but this situation involves some very troubling behavior that goes beyond typical event planning conflicts." My hands instinctively moved to my belly, a protective gesture that had become automatic during stressful moments. "Please, just tell me what's going on." Margaret opened a folder on her desk and pulled out several documents. "Yesterday at approximately 3:15, a woman identifying herself as Carmen Martinez came to our facility requesting to cancel Saturday's event. She claimed to be acting on behalf of the Chen family due to a medical emergency involving your pregnancy." The lie was so bold and cruel that I struggled to process it. That's completely false. My pregnancy is progressing normally, and I would never cancel my own baby shower. "I suspected as much," Margaret replied. The woman seemed more focused on financial details than on any supposed medical concerns. She was particularly interested in our cancellation policy and whether deposits could be transferred to future events. She pulled out another document. Here's where the situation becomes even more concerning. Ms. Martinez presented documentation claiming authority to make decisions on your behalf, including a forged medical letter allegedly from your obstetrician stating that bed rest had been prescribed. My blood ran cold. Carmen had not only lied about my health, but had created fake medical documentation to support her deception. The level of premeditation and manipulation was staggering. I can show you our security footage of the interaction, Margaret continued. Ms. Martinez's behavior during the meeting was unusual. She seemed more excited than concerned, and she made several comments that raised red flags for our staff. Margaret led me to a small conference room where she had queued up security footage on a laptop. As the video began playing, I watched my sister enter the venue with a confident stride that contradicted her alleged story about a family medical emergency. Carmen was impeccably dressed in a designer suit I had never seen before, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing an expression of barely contained excitement rather than concern. She approached the reception desk with the demeanor of someone conducting a business transaction, not delivering tragic news about a family crisis. "Could you turn up the audio?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear what Carmen had said. Margaret adjusted the settings, and Carmen's voice filled the small room. "I need to speak with someone about canceling the Chen baby shower scheduled for Saturday. There's been a medical complication with my sister's pregnancy, and the family is devastated." Even through the computer speakers, I could hear the lack of genuine emotion in Carmen's voice. She sounded like someone reciting lines from a script rather than delivering heartbreaking news about a beloved family member. The venue staff member on duty, a young woman named Sarah, responded with appropriate concern. "Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. Is your sister going to be okay?" Carmen's response chilled me to the bone. "The doctors are hopeful, but she'll be on strict bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy. The family just can't think about celebrating right now. You understand." She delivered these lies with practiced ease, even managing to convey appropriate sadness while her eyes remained calculating and focused on the paperwork Sarah was pulling out. "What about rescheduling for after the baby arrives?" Sarah asked. "We could potentially transfer the deposit to a future date." This was clearly the question Carmen had been waiting for. Her entire demeanor shifted as she leaned forward with renewed energy. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The family would love to plan something bigger and better once this crisis has passed. Maybe we could look at upgrading to a larger space, perhaps for a christening celebration." The footage showed Carmen's transformation from grieving sister to excited event planner in real time. She began discussing potential dates, upgraded packages, and additional services with an enthusiasm that completely contradicted her story about family tragedy. Margaret paused the video and looked at me with sympathy. This is when I knew something was seriously wrong. People dealing with genuine medical emergencies don't typically get excited about planning future parties. The most damaging part of the footage came when Sarah mentioned that cancellation policies required notification from either the bride-to-be or the person who signed the contract. Carmen's response revealed the depth of her deception. "My sister is too distraught to handle business details right now. I have power of attorney for family matters, and here's a letter from her doctor confirming the medical necessity of this cancellation." She pulled out an official-looking document with letterhead from my obstetrician's office. The letter, which I now knew was forged, stated that I had been placed on immediate bed rest due to pregnancy complications and would be unable to attend social events for the remainder of my pregnancy. "I called your doctor's office to verify this letter," Margaret explained. "They confirmed that no such medical recommendation has been made and that you have no scheduled appointments indicating any complications." The betrayal was so complete and calculated that I felt physically sick. Carmen hadn't acted impulsively or made a simple mistake. She had planned this cancellation carefully, creating false documentation and rehearsing her lies to ensure the venue would comply with her request. "There's more," Margaret said gently, resuming the video. In the final portion of the footage, Carmen's true motivations became crystal clear. As she prepared to leave, she made a comment to Sarah that revealed everything.
"Between you and me," Carmen said with a conspiratorial smile, "my sister's taste in events is pretty basic. This gives us a chance to plan something more sophisticated once the baby arrives. Something that would photograph better for lifestyle magazines, if you know what I mean." Sarah nodded politely, but I could see confusion in her expression as Carmen's story continued to evolve. "I'm actually in marketing myself," Carmen continued, "and I've been thinking this could be a great collaboration opportunity. The upgraded christening event could be featured in Philadelphia Lifestyle as part of a spread on elevated family celebrations. Great publicity for the venue." The footage ended with Carmen walking away from the reception desk with a satisfied smile, checking her phone and appearing completely unburdened by the supposed family tragedy she had just described. Margaret closed the laptop and gave me a moment to process what I had witnessed. "Mrs. Chen, I've seen difficult family dynamics before, but this level of deception is concerning. Your sister not only canceled your event under false pretenses, but attempted to use the situation for her own professional advancement." I sat in stunned silence, trying to reconcile the Carmen I had grown up with and the person I had just watched manipulate an entire venue staff with elaborate lies about my health and well-being. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Legally, since she presented forged medical documentation, this could constitute fraud," Margaret explained. "But more immediately, I want you to know that we're willing to reinstate your event for Saturday if you'd like. We've held the space pending clarification of this situation." The kindness in her offer was overwhelming, but I realized that the damage went far beyond a canceled venue. Carmen's betrayal had poisoned what should have been a joyful celebration, and I wasn't sure if I could proceed with the shower knowing what my own sister had been willing to do to sabotage it. As I drove home from the Meridian Event Center, I called David and left a voicemail asking him to come home as soon as possible. I needed his support to figure out how to confront Carmen and decide whether our relationship could survive this level of betrayal. The evidence was undeniable, captured in high-definition video and supported by forged documents. My sister had not only canceled my baby shower, but had lied about my health, created fake medical records, and attempted to use the situation for her own professional benefit. The question now was whether she would admit to what she had done or continue lying even when confronted with irrefutable proof. David arrived home 20 minutes after receiving my voicemail, finding me sitting at our kitchen table with copies of the forged medical documents and screenshots from the security footage that Margaret had provided. One look at my face told him everything he needed to know about the severity of the situation. "What did Carmen do?" he asked, immediately moving to sit beside me and taking my hand. I walked him through everything Margaret had shown me, watching his expression shift from confusion to disbelief to anger as the full scope of Carmen's betrayal became clear. When I finished explaining about the forged medical letter from his own hospital's letterhead, David's professional outrage joined his personal fury. "Rebecca, this isn't just lying to a venue. Carmen committed fraud using official medical documentation. She could face serious legal consequences for this." The gravity of the situation was finally hitting me. This wasn't a family dispute or a misunderstanding about party planning preferences. Carmen had committed crimes to sabotage my celebration while positioning herself for professional gain. "I need to confront her," I said, though the thought of facing my sister with this evidence filled me with dread. She's probably wondering why no one has called her about the supposed medical emergency. David squeezed my hand. "I'll be right there with you. She needs to know that her lies have been exposed, and she needs to understand the consequences of what she has done." We decided to call Carmen and ask her to come to our apartment immediately, claiming there was an urgent family matter we needed to discuss.
When she arrived 30 minutes later, she was carrying a bouquet of flowers and wearing an expression of practiced concern. "Rebecca, honey, how are you feeling?" David said there was something urgent about the family. She embraced me carefully, as if I were indeed fragile from medical complications. The performance was so convincing that for a moment I almost doubted what I had witnessed on the security footage. But the evidence was sitting on our kitchen table, and Carmen's acting couldn't change the facts. "Sit down, Carmen," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "We need to talk about the baby shower." Something shifted in her expression, a flicker of wariness that she quickly masked with continued concern. "Of course! I know how disappointed you must be about having to cancel, but your health is what matters most."
The ease with which she maintained the lie, even in our private conversation, demonstrated a level of deception that chilled me. Carmen was prepared to continue the charade indefinitely, allowing me to believe I had missed my own celebration due to fabricated medical issues. "Carmen, I went to the Meridian Event Center today," I said, watching her face carefully. "I spoke with Margaret Sullivan about the cancellation." The color drained from Carmen's face, but she attempted to maintain her composure. "Oh, good. I was hoping they would follow up to make sure you were okay. It's a professional establishment." "They showed me the security footage of your visit yesterday." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Carmen's mask finally slipped completely, revealing panic and calculation as she tried to determine how much I knew and what story might still be salvageable. "Rebecca, I can explain." "Explain what?" I interrupted, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Explain how you canceled my baby shower while lying about a medical emergency? Explain how you forged a letter from my doctor? Explain how you told the venue staff that I have basic taste and you wanted to plan something more sophisticated for magazine coverage." Carmen's attempts at damage control were immediate and desperate. "You don't understand the pressure I was under. The event was becoming too expensive, and I was trying to protect you from financial stress during your pregnancy. By lying about my health and forging medical documents?" "I panicked," she said, tears beginning to form. "Everything was spiraling out of control, and I thought if I could just pause everything, we could regroup and plan something better." David, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "Carmen, you used letterhead from Children's Hospital to create a false medical document. That's not panic, that's premeditated fraud." Carmen turned to him with desperation. "David, you understand how competitive the medical field is. I was trying to create opportunities that could benefit your career too. By sabotaging my wife's baby shower and lying about her health, how exactly does that benefit anyone except you?" I pulled out the printed screenshots Margaret had provided, placing them on the table in front of Carmen. "Look at yourself in this footage. Look at how excited you are while claiming there's a family medical emergency." Carmen glanced at the images and immediately looked away, unable to maintain eye contact with the evidence of her deception. "I was trying to handle a difficult situation as best I could." "You are planning a magazine feature using my canceled shower as an opportunity to plan something more photogenic. You told the venue staff that this gave you a chance to create something more sophisticated than my basic taste would allow." Carmen's defensive strategy shifted from denial to justification. "Rebecca, I love you, but you don't understand how important image is in today's world. I was trying to help you build connections that could benefit your family's future. By lying, manipulating, and committing fraud? By creating opportunities you're too naive to pursue yourself." The condescension in her voice was finally undisguised, revealing the contempt that had been lurking beneath her supposed helpfulness throughout the entire planning process. Carmen genuinely believed that her values and priorities were superior to mine, and that her deception was justified by her superior understanding of social dynamics.
David stood up, his professional demeanor giving way to protective anger. Carmen, I think you need to leave. Rebecca doesn't need the stress right now. But I wasn't finished. The months of manipulation, the weeks of anxiety, and the devastating betrayal had crystallized into a clarity I hadn't felt in months. No, David, I need to say this. I turned to face Carmen directly. You canceled my baby shower 3 days before it was supposed to happen. You lied about my health to people who care about me. You forged medical documents using David's hospital's letterhead. You plan to use this deception to advance your own career. Carmen's tears were flowing freely now, but I could see the calculation behind them. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I made mistakes, but everything I did was because I love you. Love doesn't involve lying about someone's medical condition to sabotage their celebration. Love doesn't involve forging documents or manipulating venue staff. Love doesn't involve dismissing someone's taste and relationships as inadequate. I was trying to give you something better than you would have chosen for yourself. The admission was finally honest, revealing the core of Carmen's motivations. She had never intended to help me celebrate according to my preferences or values. She had planned from the beginning to create an event that reflected her vision of what my life should look like, regardless of what I actually wanted.
Carmen, you need to understand something. I continued, my voice growing stronger. I don't want your version to be better. I don't want networking events disguised as family celebrations. I don't want magazine features or social climbing or connections with people who don't know or care about me. You're being naive about how the world works. I'm being authentic about how I want to live in the world. There's a difference. David moved closer to support me as I delivered the consequences I had decided upon during the drive home from the venue. Here's what's going to happen, I announced. You're going to call Margaret Sullivan tomorrow morning and admit that you canceled my shower under false pretenses. You're going to apologize for the forged medical documentation and any confusion you caused her staff. Carmen opened her mouth to protest, but I continued before she could speak. You're going to contact every person on the guest list and explain that you made an error in canceling the event and that anyone who wants to attend is welcome to come on Saturday. Rebecca, that's humiliating. Not as humiliating as having your sister lie about your health to sabotage your celebration. And Carmen, if you refuse to make these calls, David and I will contact the hospital administration about the forged letterhead. We'll also consider filing fraud charges for the false medical documentation. The legal threat finally broke through Carmen's defenses. She realized that her actions had consequences beyond family disappointment, and that I was serious about holding her accountable. I'll make the calls, she whispered finally. I'll fix this. Fixing this means more than making phone calls. It means understanding why what you did was wrong and taking responsibility for the damage you've caused. As Carmen gathered her purse to leave, she made one final attempt at manipulation. I hope you can forgive me someday. Family is supposed to be forever. Family is supposed to be honest, supportive, and trustworthy. You'll need to prove you can be those things before we discuss forever. After Carmen left, David and I sat in our kitchen processing what had just happened. The confrontation had been necessary, but it marked the end of the relationship I had believed existed between my sister and me. How do you feel? David asked. Exhausted, but also relieved. For months, I've been questioning my own judgment about Carmen's behavior. Now I know I was right to be concerned. The baby shower was still scheduled for Saturday, assuming Carmen followed through on her promise to make the necessary phone calls. But more importantly, I had reclaimed control over my own celebration and established boundaries that would protect my family going forward. The next morning brought a mixture of anticipation and dread as I waited to see whether Carmen would follow through on her promise to make the necessary phone calls.
David had left for his early shift at the hospital, but not before checking on me multiple times and reminding me to call him if Carmen created any additional drama. At exactly 9 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Margaret Sullivan from the Meridian Event Center. "Mrs. Chen, I received a very interesting call from your sister this morning," Margaret said, her tone conveying both relief and amazement. "She admitted to fabricating the medical emergency and requested that we reinstate your shower for tomorrow. She also asked me to convey her apologies for any confusion her actions may have caused our staff." The formal, stilted language suggested Carmen had delivered a carefully scripted apology rather than expressing genuine remorse. But the important thing was that she had taken the first step toward accountability. "Thank you for being so understanding about this situation," I replied. "I know it must have been unusual for your staff to deal with." "Mrs. Chen, in 15 years of event management, I can honestly say I've never encountered anything quite like this. However, I want you to know that our entire team is committed to making tomorrow's celebration everything you hoped it would be." Margaret's kindness reinforced my faith that good people still existed in the world, even when family members disappointed me. "I really appreciate that. Can I ask what else needs to be done to ensure everything is ready?" "Your sister had actually handled most of the vendor coordination correctly before the cancellation. The flowers, catering, and decorations were all properly arranged. We'll need to reconfirm a few details, but the infrastructure for a beautiful celebration is already in place."
This revelation was bittersweet. Carmen's planning abilities weren't in question. Her motivations and methods were the problem. She could have organized a wonderful shower if she had focused on celebrating me rather than advancing her own agenda. Over the next few hours, my phone began ringing with calls from confused guests who had received Carmen's apologetic messages about the miscommunication regarding the shower cancellation. Each conversation required me to navigate the delicate balance of reassuring people that the event was happening while not revealing the full extent of Carmen's deception. My friend Monica was the first to call, her voice reflecting bewilderment about the mixed messages she had received. "Rebecca, I got a voicemail from Carmen saying there was a mistake about the shower being canceled. What's going on? Are you okay?" I had decided to tell close friends a simplified version of the truth while protecting them from the most disturbing details. "There was a miscommunication about the venue, but everything's been resolved. The shower is definitely happening tomorrow." Carmen sounded really upset in her message, Monica observed. She kept apologizing and saying she had made a terrible mistake. "Did something happen between you two?" "We had some disagreements about the planning process," I said, which was technically accurate, if dramatically understated. "But the important thing is that we get to celebrate together tomorrow." Dr. Patricia Hoffman called next, her tone reflecting professional concern, mixed with confusion about the medical emergency that had apparently resolved itself overnight. "Rebecca, I received a very strange message from your sister about canceling and then uncanceling your baby shower due to a medical situation. I hope everything's all right with your pregnancy." This conversation was more delicate because Carmen had specifically mentioned my medical condition to Dr. Hoffman, requiring me to address the health concerns directly. "Dr. Hoffman, there was never any medical emergency," I explained carefully. "There was a family miscommunication that led to the temporary cancellation, but my pregnancy is progressing normally and I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow." I'm relieved to hear that, though I could detect lingering confusion in her voice. Carmen's message was quite detailed about medical complications, so I was genuinely concerned. The fact that Carmen had provided detailed false medical information to multiple people highlighted the calculated nature of her deception. She hadn't simply made a vague claim about health issues. She had created specific, believable lies that would have caused genuine worry among people who cared about me. David's sister Jennifer called from Seattle that afternoon, having received Carmen's message about the shower confusion. "Rebecca, I'm still planning to fly in tonight, but Jennifer's voicemail was so confusing. She mentioned something about medical issues and then said everything was fine. I'm worried about what's really happening."
David's family deserved more honesty than I had provided to casual acquaintances, so I explained the situation more directly. Jennifer, Carmen made some poor decisions about the shower planning and canceled it without telling me. When I found out, we had a serious conversation and she agreed to fix the situation. There were never any medical problems. She canceled your baby shower without telling you? Jennifer's voice rose with indignation. Rebecca, that's not poor decision making, that's sabotage. Are you okay? Jennifer's clear recognition of the situation's severity was validating. Family members who truly cared about me could immediately see that Carmen's actions were beyond acceptable bounds. I'm processing it, I admitted, but I'm focused on enjoying tomorrow and celebrating with people who genuinely care about this baby. As the day progressed, I realized that Carmen's forced accountability was revealing important truths about the relationships in my life. People who barely knew me accepted her explanation about miscommunication and moved on. Those who cared about me asked follow-up questions and expressed concern about the underlying family dynamics. The most difficult call came from Mom, who had apparently received a tearful confession from Carmen about the shower situation. Mija, Carmen called me crying this morning. She said she made terrible mistakes with your party planning and that you might never forgive her. What happened between you girls? Mom's voice carried the weight of a mother trying to understand why her daughters were in conflict, and I knew she deserved a full explanation. Mom, Carmen canceled my baby shower by lying to the venue about a fake medical emergency. She forged documents claiming I was on bed rest and couldn't attend social events. I only found out because the venue manager became suspicious and investigated.
The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that I wondered if we had been disconnected. She lied about your health? Mom finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She told them I was having pregnancy complications and needed bed rest for the remainder of my pregnancy. She created a fake letter from my doctor to support the lie. Dios mío, Mom breathed. Rebecca, that's not just lying, I don't even have words for what that is. Mom's shock was palpable, and I could hear her struggling to reconcile this behavior with the daughter she had raised. Why would she do such a thing? I think she wanted to plan a different kind of event that would benefit her professionally and socially. The baby shower I wanted wasn't elaborate enough for her vision. But to lie about your health? To make people worry about you and the baby? That's cruel, Mija. Mom's clear recognition of Carmen's cruelty provided validation I hadn't realized I needed. As the family matriarch, her judgment carried significant weight in determining how serious this situation really was. What are you going to do about tomorrow? Mom asked. The shower is back on. Carmen made the calls to fix the situation, and most people can still attend. But Mom, I don't know if Carmen and I can repair our relationship after this. I understand, Mija. Trust is not easily rebuilt once it's been broken so completely. That evening, David and I received an unexpected visitor. Carmen arrived at our apartment carrying a large gift bag and wearing an expression of carefully controlled emotion. I wanted to drop off your gift shower and apologize again for the confusion I caused, she said, her tone formal and distant. David answered the door, but didn't invite her in. Carmen, Rebecca has had a stressful day dealing with the aftermath of your decisions. Maybe this isn't the best time. It's okay, I said, appearing beside David, but this conversation needs to be brief. Carmen handed me the gift bag, which contained an expensive baby monitor system that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I know this doesn't fix what I did, but I wanted you to know that I do love you and the baby. The gift felt like another attempt at manipulation, using expensive presents to demonstrate affection, rather than addressing the underlying issues that had caused our conflict. Carmen, I don't need expensive gifts. I need honesty and respect. I know that now, though her words sounded rehearsed. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, and I realize I got caught up in trying to create something impressive instead of something meaningful.
The acknowledgement was a step forward, but it felt superficial compared to the depth of betrayal she had demonstrated. What you did wasn't just about party planning preferences, I said carefully. You lied about my health to multiple people, forged medical documents, and planned to use my canceled celebration for your own professional benefit. Carmen's composure cracked slightly. I know it sounds terrible when you list it out like that, but I was trying to create opportunities for both of us. By sabotaging my celebration and lying about my medical condition? I made bad choices, she admitted, but my intentions were good. David stepped forward, his patience clearly exhausted. Carmen, intentions don't matter when the actions involve fraud and deception. Rebecca could have pressed charges for what you did. The legal reminder seemed to refocus Carmen's attention on the seriousness of her situation. I'm grateful that you didn't, she said quietly. And I want you to know that I'm getting help to understand why I made these choices. This was the first mention of seeking professional help, and it suggested some recognition that her behavior reflected deeper issues than simple party planning disagreements. What kind of help? I asked. I started seeing a therapist to talk about my relationships and why I feel the need to control situations that aren't mine to control. The admission was encouraging, though I remained skeptical about Carmen's ability to change fundamental aspects of her personality and value system.
That's a good step, I acknowledged. But Carmen, rebuilding trust between us will take time and consistent behavior changes. One therapy appointment doesn't erase what happened. I understand, she said, though I wasn't sure she truly did. I'm hoping that someday we can be close again. Someday might be possible, I replied carefully, but it depends on whether you can genuinely change how you treat me and respect my choices. After Carmen left, David and I spent the evening preparing for the next day's celebration while processing the emotional complexity of the situation. How do you feel about her showing up tonight? David asked. Conflicted, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe she's genuinely sorry and willing to change, but another part of me thinks she's just managing the situation to minimize consequences. Trust your instincts, David advised. You've been right about Carmen's behavior all along, even when you doubted yourself. As I went to bed that night, I reflected on how drastically my relationship with Carmen had changed in just a few days. The sister I had trusted and loved my entire life had revealed herself to be someone willing to commit fraud and manipulation to advance her own agenda. Tomorrow's baby shower would proceed as planned, but it would represent more than just a celebration of my pregnancy. It would mark the beginning of a new chapter in my life, where I prioritize authentic relationships over family obligations and where I trusted my own judgment about people's character and motivations. The shower might be salvaged, but my relationship with Carmen would require a complete rebuilding from the ground up, if it could be rebuilt at all. Saturday morning brought crystal clear skies and the kind of gentle warmth that made everything feel possible. As I prepared for what had nearly become the baby shower that never was, I experienced a profound sense of clarity that I hadn't felt in months. The woman looking back at me in the mirror was different from the one who had started this journey weeks ago. I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed and learned to trust instincts I had been taught to doubt. David finished loading the car with the few personal touches I wanted to add to the celebration, items that reflected my actual personality rather than Carmen's vision of who I should be. A playlist of songs that meant something to me and David, rather than background music chosen for ambiance. Photos of our journey through fertility treatments and pregnancy milestones, celebrating the real story behind this day. Simple decorations that reflected joy rather than status. You seem different today, David observed as we drove toward the venue. Calmer than you've been in weeks. I feel like I finally know what I'm celebrating. For so long, this party felt like it belonged to someone else. Today, it's actually mine. The transformation wasn't just about the event itself, but about my understanding of who I was and what I valued. Carmen's betrayal had forced me to examine
every assumption I held about family relationships, personal boundaries, and the difference between love and control. Margaret Sullivan greeted us at the Meridian Event Center with warmth that immediately set the tone for the day. The space looked beautiful, but more importantly, it felt welcoming rather than intimidating. The elaborate touches Carmen had insisted upon had been scaled back to create an atmosphere of genuine celebration rather than social performance. "Mrs. Chen, I'm so pleased we could make this work," Margaret said, walking us through the final details. "I have to tell you, our staff has been talking about your situation all week. What you went through was remarkable, and how you handled it was even more impressive." Her words reminded me that this experience had ripple effects beyond my immediate family. Other people had witnessed Carmen's deception and my response to it, and their observations mattered for understanding the broader implications of what had happened. As guests began arriving, the difference between this celebration and Carmen's planned event became immediately apparent. Instead of strangers making polite conversation while networking, the room was filled with people who knew my story, understood my journey, and genuinely wanted to celebrate this milestone with me. Monica arrived with her characteristic warmth, immediately noticing the relaxed atmosphere. "Rebecca, this feels so much more like you than what Carmen had described. I'm glad you were able to make it your own." Her comment highlighted something important about authentic relationships. True friends recognize when something doesn't align with your personality and feel relief when you return to being yourself rather than someone else's version of who you should be. Dr. Patricia Hoffman's presence represented one of the unexpected positive outcomes of the entire situation. Despite the confusion Carmen had created with her lies, Dr. Hoffman had chosen to attend and had brought with her a perspective that enriched the celebration. "Rebecca, I've been thinking about our previous conversations about pediatric care. Your approach to patient families is exactly what we need in surgical settings. If you're ever interested in exploring that path, I'd love to discuss opportunities with you."
The irony was striking. Carmen had fabricated my interest in surgical nursing to manipulate Dr. Hoffman's attendance, but the authentic connection we developed at the shower created a genuine opportunity that aligned with my actual career aspirations. Real relationships built on truth created possibilities that manipulation never could. Jennifer's flight from Seattle represented the kind of family support that transcended obligation. She had rearranged her work schedule and invested in expensive travel, not because she felt compelled to attend, but because she genuinely wanted to celebrate with us. "I brought something special," she said, presenting me with a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a journal she had kept during her own first pregnancy, filled with thoughts, fears, hopes, and observations about becoming a mother. "I thought you might like to read about someone else's journey," she explained, "and maybe start your own record for Emma to read someday." The gift represented genuine thoughtfulness rather than expensive obligation. Jennifer had chosen something personal and meaningful that connected our experiences while honoring the unique aspects of my own journey. When Mom arrived carrying a familiar gift bag from my childhood, the emotional weight of the moment nearly overwhelmed me. Inside was the baby blanket she had hand-embroidered when I was born, created with stitches her own mother had taught her decades earlier. "I've been saving this for 31 years, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. "It represents 3 generations of women in our family who loved their babies before they were even born." The blanket symbolized authentic family traditions that had nothing to do with social status or professional networking. It represented love that was patient, enduring, and focused on the recipient rather than the giver's reputation. Carmen's absence from the shower was both a relief and a source of complex emotions. Her decision not to attend allowed the celebration to proceed without tension or uncomfortable dynamics, but it also marked the definitive end of the sister relationship I had believed existed for 3 decades. Several guests asked about Carmen throughout the day, and I had developed a response that protected both her privacy
and my own peace of mind. Carmen had other commitments today, but she sends her love. This simple statement allowed people to draw their own conclusions while avoiding explanations that would have overshadowed the celebration. The questions themselves revealed how abnormal her absence was, as most people expected sisters to attend each other's major life celebrations. The gift opening became a powerful demonstration of the difference between authentic and obligatory giving. Each present reflected genuine consideration of my personality, needs, and preferences. Hand-knit baby clothes from colleagues who had observed my style preferences. Books about parenting, chosen by friends who knew my approach to learning and growth. Practical items selected by people who understood the realities of new parenthood rather than the Instagram version. David's colleague Sarah presented a gift that particularly moved me, a care package for the postpartum period, filled with comfort foods, bath salts, nursing supplies, and a note offering to bring meals during the first weeks after Emma's birth. I remember how overwhelming those early days were. Everyone focuses on the baby, but the mother needs care too. Her thoughtfulness represented the kind of genuine support that sustains people through life's challenges. Unlike Carmen's elaborate but self-serving gestures, Sarah's gift was entirely focused on my well-being without any secondary agenda. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself engaged in conversations that felt meaningful rather than obligatory. People asked about my pregnancy experience with authentic curiosity rather than social politeness. They shared their own parenting stories without trying to impose their approaches on me. They celebrated my excitement about becoming a mother without judgment about my timeline or circumstances. The photographer Margaret had arranged captured moments of genuine laughter, heartfelt conversations, and authentic emotions. Looking at the images later, I could see the difference between forced celebration and real joy. The smiles were natural, the interactions were spontaneous, and the overall atmosphere reflected genuine community rather than social performance. When guests began leaving, many expressed gratitude for being included in such a meaningful celebration. Their comments revealed that they had recognized something special about the day's atmosphere, even without knowing the full story of what had preceded it. Rebecca, this was one of the most genuine celebrations I've attended in years, commented Lisa, my colleague from the hospital. You could feel the love in the room. Her observation confirmed that authenticity creates energy that people can sense, even when they don't understand its source. The baby shower had succeeded, not because of elaborate planning or expensive details, but because it was built on real relationships and genuine emotions. During the drive home, David and I processed the contrast between the day's reality and what Carmen had originally planned. What struck you most about today?
How much more meaningful everything was when it reflected what I actually wanted, rather than what someone else thought I should want, I replied. The conversations were deeper, the gifts were more thoughtful, and the whole experience felt like celebrating who I really am, rather than performing as someone else's idea of who I should be. The weeks following the baby shower provided time for deeper reflection on the lessons learned through this painful but transformative experience. The insights that emerged would influence not only my relationship with Carmen, but my approach to all future relationships and life decisions. The first fundamental realization concerned the difference between love and control. For years, I had interpreted Carmen's involvement in my life as evidence of sisterly love. The baby shower situation revealed that much of what I had perceived as care was actually attempts to reshape me according to her vision of what my life should look like. True love supports people in becoming their authentic selves, rather than trying to remake them according to external standards. Carmen's planning reflected her values, her social aspirations, and her professional goals, rather than my preferences or personality. This distinction became crucial for evaluating all relationships going forward.
The second major insight involved the importance of trusting my own judgment about people's behavior and motivations. Throughout the planning process, I had felt increasingly uncomfortable with Carmen's approach, but had doubted my perceptions because I wanted to believe in her good intentions. The security footage provided irrefutable evidence that my instincts had been accurate all along. Learning to trust my own observations about people's character became essential for protecting myself and my family from future manipulation. This lesson extended beyond family relationships to friendships, professional connections, and social situations. The third crucial understanding concerned the difference between authentic and transactional relationships. Carmen's guest list had been chosen based on potential networking value rather than genuine connection to me or my journey. Her focus on magazine coverage and professional advancement revealed that she viewed my celebration as an opportunity for her own benefit, rather than a chance to honor my happiness. This distinction became crucial for evaluating all relationships going forward. When Emma was born 6 months later, the lessons learned during the baby shower crisis profoundly influenced how I approached motherhood and family relationships. Her birth announcement was sent only to people who had genuinely supported our journey. Her first celebrations were intimate gatherings focused entirely on joy rather than social obligations. Carmen sent a beautiful gift to the hospital but did not visit, which felt appropriate given the boundaries I had established. She continued therapy and occasionally sent brief messages acknowledging her past behavior and expressing hope for eventual reconciliation. While I remained open to the possibility of rebuilding our relationship someday, I was no longer willing to prioritize family harmony over personal integrity. Any future connection with Carmen would require consistent demonstration of respect, honesty, and genuine care for my well-being rather than her own agenda. The experience taught me that setting boundaries is not selfish, but necessary for maintaining healthy relationships. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries and work to rebuild trust when they have damaged it. Those who respond to boundaries with manipulation, guilt, or continued disrespect reveal that their primary concern is maintaining control rather than preserving the relationship. As Emma grew and our family established its own traditions, I often reflected on the baby shower that almost wasn't. What began as a devastating betrayal became a powerful education in authenticity, self-respect, and the courage to prioritize genuine connections over obligatory relationships. The security footage that revealed Carmen's deception ultimately revealed something more important: my own strength and wisdom. I had recognized manipulation, confronted betrayal, and chosen authentic relationships over family obligation. These skills would protect and guide me through every future challenge. Sometimes the most painful experiences become the most valuable teachers, forcing growth that wouldn't have occurred through easier circumstances. Carmen's betrayal shattered my naive assumptions about family loyalty, but it also freed me to build relationships based on mutual respect rather than genetic obligation. The baby shower taught me that authentic celebration requires authentic relationships, and that protecting those relationships sometimes means releasing people who refuse to honor them. This lesson became the foundation for raising Emma in an environment where love is demonstrated through respect, support, and genuine care, rather than control and manipulation. Every time I look at the photos from that day, I remember the feeling of finally celebrating my authentic self, surrounded by people who valued exactly who I was. That memory became a touchstone for every future decision about relationships, boundaries, and the kind of life I wanted to build for my family.
Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.